Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's presentation to the Board of Directors of Marvel Enterprises. I'm your host, Konstantin Ginsburg, and I'm frankly much better at conversation than I am at presentation, so feel free to ask questions as we go. I would like to make it as interactive as possible. Growing up in Soviet Russia, I never heard of Hulk or Captain America or even Spider-Man. Of course, now my kids love these characters. As far as myself, I'm in love with the business model of Marvel. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, the business model of Marvel Enterprises that allowed the company to get to where it is today and what opportunities it provides to the company going forward. In the last few years, the company went through a remarkable turnaround, emerging from bankruptcy in 1998, incurring massive losses of over $100 million in 2000, and then little by little the company righted the ship, and in 2002, with the release of the original Spider-Man movie, the company started producing profits, and by 2004 the company repaid all of its debts and now is debt-free. The markets rewarded the company by bidding up its shares from about $1 a share back in 2000 to $22 a share in 2004, giving the company market capitalization of about $2 billion. The company achieved a profit of $170 million on revenue of $300 million, which implies a remarkable, very impressive profit margin. So everybody in this room and at the management, at the helm of the company, deserves a round of applause. So let's look at this business model that allowed the company to achieve these results. If we look at different markets that the company operates in, we can see that the traditional comics business line that the company was basically started on or founded on, it represents $300 million of revenue a year, and it's been stable for the last few years. And 40% of that market belongs to Marvel. Now, much more lucrative line of business for Marvel is licensing its characters. It licenses these characters to consumer product manufacturers, to toy manufacturers, and also to media product creators like movie studios and video game creators. The action figures slice of the toy market is $1.2 billion a year, which is already 4 times as big as the original comics, traditional comics business line. And video and movies lines of business are even more impressive. The video games market was over $10 billion a year last year, and the movie markets, just the ticket portion of that market is about $10 billion a year last year. And both of these markets have been growing at about 10% clip annually for the last 3 years. So from monetary perspective, those are much more lucrative and faster growing lines of business that Marvel needs to pay attention to. Now, I want to emphasize that the original comics line of business is extremely important to Marvel because it generates those characters that later can be licensed out and used in the other more lucrative financially lines of businesses. So, in fact, the business model that Marvel employs is similar to a talent agency. It has exceptional and growing talent pool. It has been very profitable with very low capital requirements, and it doesn't have the headaches often associated with owning superstars. Imagine, owning Tom Cruise, who never ages and doesn't do any dumb things like jumping up and down Oprah's couch, or owning Lindsay Lohan without her rehab problems. It's really a cash machine. It generates a lot of profit with very little capital investment. There is, however, a problem with this line of business, and the problem is that the company leaves too much money on the table. It could be generating more profits. If we look at the original Spider-Man release, the tickets and DVDs grossed about $1 billion worldwide. The revenue for Marvel was only $25 million. So it's only 2.5%. It also has limited control over the storylines in those movies and video games. Marvel just licenses its characters, but it relies on movie studios and video game creators to actually develop the storylines. And another downside of this approach is inability to cross-promote its characters. If Marvel owned its own storyline and created its own scenarios for movies and video games, it could promote its lesser known characters by appearing them alongside with better known like Spider-Man. So all these limitations, they lead to limited growth potential going forward. Yes, the company can squeeze a bit of a percentage here, a percentage there, but ultimately staying with this business model will lead to a ceiling on a share price. So what's the solution? The solution, that the way I see it, is for Marvel to become a full-blown media company. It could fully control its storylines, it could cross-promote its characters, it could collect higher percentage of profits from the revenues from the movies and video games, and it could create its own content. Now, we have a good example of a company like that transformed itself from a one-line business into a media conglomerate. And it's Disney. I'm talking about Disney. It started out as a creator of cartoons, and now it's a multinational mass media corporation that owns film studios, broadcast television networks, cable networks, theme parks, successful music business, publishing, and it also does merchandising and licensing. And the market cap of Disney is $70 billion, and it was even higher than that a couple of years ago, but due to certain missteps by Disney management, it came down to 70 billion, which still dwarfs the 2 billion that Marvel has. So what would it take to get from where Marvel is now to becoming something similar to Disney? It will certainly require significant investment. It will take brilliant execution. It will take patience and high risk tolerance. But most of all, it will take vision, balls, and leadership. Now, I'm not gonna BS you and pretend that there are no risks associated with this transformation. There are risks, and they are very real. Acquisitions may not be successful, they could be too expensive, or the wrong expertise might be acquired. Marvel may not be able to attract and or retain the right creative talent. Films may be unsuccessful, and there could be marketing missteps along the way. Just look at Disney. So all this could lead to depressed financial results, and that's where high tolerance for risk and patience would be essential. Now, I believe we can mitigate some of these risks and address them one by one. We can follow Disney recipe and look at their missteps to draw lessons from that experience, and hopefully Marvel can be more successful in the process of transformation, of transforming its business into a full-blown media company. Marvel needs to seek out and retain top talent. It needs to cross-promote its characters, and it needs to design marketing campaigns that would cross-promote its different lines of business. And as I said, the biggest requirement would be patience and high risk tolerance. In the end, I believe that Marvel is uniquely positioned to take advantage of the latest trends in this business. Now, there are alternatives, definitely. The main alternative to this transformation would be just staying with the current business model. Why fix something that isn't broken? The company generates healthy profits. It's very non-capital intensive. It has low risk, so it's a low risk cash machine. However, as I mentioned before, there is a limited growth associated with this business model. There is a ceiling on the share price that investors are willing to pay for the company that doesn't have exceptional growth perspective. So, in conclusion, I would like to emphasize that creating content is really the way of the future. Everybody in the media business tries to create its own content these days. The companies don't want to just distribute content or be able to facilitate distribution of the content. They want to create their own content and control their content. This will allow cross-promote characters, generate growth, and diversify revenue. Executed right, it will markedly improve returns for shareholders and ultimately increase share price. Thank you very much, and I would like to open this for questions and answers.